Hi, my name is Marcy Littlefield, and We Were Not Silent is a project that I developed for the New York Historical Society to highlight the experiences of Black women in the Civil War. But ultimately, this project is a story about freedom, and it's a story about the everyday experiences of Black women. And it's meant to be a public history project, one that allows its visitors to see themselves in history and to see the ways in which we are all part of history. So I hope you enjoy it. I see this as a special exhibit, one that could potentially be funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities. Thank you. Enjoy. Why is history important? Why recover silences? How do we use narratives to represent history? How do we represent memory? How do we tell the stories that haven't been told? In this book, they claim that Americans have historical amnesia. That means that they really don't know very much about history at all. That, while they think they know things about history, there are some things that they don't know and that they don't understand. And while we may know some things about the Civil War, many people died, many men lost their lives. The war lasted way too long, and the fight was brutal. Even some women participated in the war. Famous women that played a part in the fight. We even watch historical films. As Americans, we're interested in history. Harriet grossed $43 million in the United States and Canada, $200,000 worldwide, and $4 million in home video sales. But how much do we really know about the Civil War? There are some really important things that we don't know, like how the slaves freed themselves. Once the Civil War began, over 500,000 enslaved people left the plantations and escaped to the Union. W.E.B. Du Bois called the mass exodus of enslaved people America's first general strike. Jamil Bowie said in the New York Times that Black Americans delivered President Lincoln's promise of a new birth of freedom. The truth is, there are many untold and neglected stories that we don't know about, that we haven't heard, and in particular about Black women. We haven't heard a lot of Black women's stories outside of Harriet Tubman or even Sojourner Truth, but Black women were not silent. Enslaved women fought, free Black women fought, they all fought for their freedom. They contributed to the outcome of the Civil War. So why the New York Historical Society? Why the women in the American story? Because the full history of the American Civil War cannot be properly understood without considering the perspectives, the experiences, and the contributions of all women. And because Black women's history is women's history. What did women do in the Civil War? Women produced supplies for soldiers. They nursed the wounded and the sick. They took up arms to fight for their cause. After the war ended, women of all backgrounds found their lives forever altered and engaged in the work of rebuilding a country that had nearly torn itself apart. This is what's written in the curriculum guide in the Women in American Story at the New York Historical Society. So what do I want to do? I want to retell this story. I want to retell the story about what Black women did, how Black women fought, how Black women participated in the war in ways that we don't know about in ways that we haven't been taught about. Black women served as nurses. They nursed the colored regiments in the war. Black women participated. They engaged in educating the freedmen. Women that you don't know about really played a big part in the Civil War. And this historical exhibit that will highlight Black women's experiences in the war will do what hasn't been done. We Were Not Silent is an exhibit which will concentrate particularly on Black women, which hasn't been done. While the New York Historical Society and other exhibits talk about all Black people, when they talk about what's happened, they haven't really talked about and concentrated on Black women. And that's what this exhibit is going to do. It's going to look at Black women leaving the plantations to Union camps. It's going to look at how Black women worked for the Union Army as spies, working on plantation and in other ways. It's going to look at how Black women worked in the war effort as nurses, as soldiers, as laundresses, as cooks, as relief workers, as educators. They participated in anti-slavery activities and anti-war activities. The truth is, we were not silent. Black women did their part. And what should museums do? Museums should be sites of memory. Museums should be sites of history. Museums should be sites of corrective justice. And that's what this exhibit is going to do. This exhibit will consider the historical realities ignored on the big screen, the things that we haven't been taught about. And it will empower visitors to be active and consumer of history. We were not silent.